Black women entertainers. They blazed such a trail.
These women were pioneers in the industry. They were making a way out of nowhere. They actually had careers in a time when they really weren't supposed to have careers.
Oftentimes they're forgotten, and yet these artists are the most influential and oftentimes the most vanguard performers in American culture.
On screen, on stage, in music, their choices of clothing, their choices of hairstyles, they all took risks.
When I think of all these women, I think of such credible human beings who really stood for equality and justice. And that is in the spirit of activism and the way that art and politics all crossed.
Hi. Hey, Ruth. How are you?
Good. How you doing?
Very good, thank you.
Good.
I'm excited to talk to you. I have so much on my mind.
Awesome.
Because I'm gonna ambush you a little, because I not only watched and enjoyed the sit-in with Johnny Carson.
Yeah.
Let's get the title exactly right. Harry Belafonte hosts the Tonight Show, but
Sit-in. Harry Belafonte hosts the Tonight Show.
Yes, but I caught up also with How It Feels to Be Free, which I'm embarrassed to say I hadn't seen.
Oh, that's nothing to be embarrassed about.
Well, I just want to tell you what that I am now. I've drank the Yoruba Kool-Aid.
Oh, thank you.
Very moved by those two films, and I'm just finally glad that we can catch up and let people know, those who haven't seen them or aren't familiar yet with them, that these are two. They're both available. I think if you have Peacock, I think you just have to subscribe for free for Peacock, and you can see the sit-in now. It's been out, but now you can see it on Peacock for nothing, I thought, right?
Yeah, Peacock is a free subscription.
Yeah, well, I have it, and then also you can see the sit-in, I think, on Amazon. But you know what?
How It Feels to Be Free, you can see on Amazon.
Okay, right. How It Feels to Be Free.
Peacock.
Yeah, exactly. Let me unrattle my head a little. So then that's right, on Amazon. I got lucky because it just happened to be a day when I looked for it that it was on the POV website for streaming for free.
American Masters, yes.
Because they will rotate titles.
That's right.
I struck gold, so I got to see. So welcome, hello, how are you?
Thank you for having me. I'm good, thank you. We are coming out of isolation, which feels nice, and trying to have a rebirth, hopefully, around a lot of things in this country.
Well, we're very pregnant with issues that need so I don't know if I did justice to your metaphor there, but yeah, I agree with you. And what I was going to say. I wanted to mention one thing more, also for housekeeping purposes, that people can, if they're interested, that Firelight Media, which Stanley Nelson's regular, comes on almost with every film as well. But they're doing an event. Is it just on Facebook?
It's Friday, yeah.
On Facebook at 2:30 Eastern time, with yourself, Stanley, Malika Zawali Waral, and Nigeia July. All filmmakers of color, and you guys are going to have a conversation. It's called the Black Joy Playlist.
Yes, and it's about making films, music-based films.
Which, you have musicians, musical artists, let's say, in both of your documentaries that I mentioned.
Yeah.
So I normally don't talk quite so much at the beginning, or maybe I do, but I don't talk to this. But I got to share one thing with you, and why I think that How It Feels to Be Free really hit home, because I was lucky enough to have two, what I consider substantial experiences with two of your subjects from that. And I want you to see if you can guess who they are, because you got Nina Simone, Cicely Tyson, Diahann Carroll, Abbey Lincoln, Lena Horne, and Pam Grier, and how their careers and lives intersect during this particular time. And can you guess which two that I might have?
I'm gonna go with Pam Grier.
No, but that's a good guess. I understand why.
Yeah.
She's the actor. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Nina, did you have?
No.
Okay.
I'll just. Why don't I just tell you? Because...
No. Let me I can get one more. Now I have one after Diahann Carroll.
Yes.
Okay. And then Lena Horne.
No, not Lena Horne.
Okay.
Of all people, Abbey Lincoln.
Of Abbey Lincoln. Yeah. Okay.
And I just want to share real briefly, because the documentary is it goes deep. And it really brought up a lot of emotions and for me and feelings, having been a young kid growing up with those ladies.
Yeah.
In my world and in my sphere, luckily. And one is that I have vivid memories of being very young, maybe the age of the young child actor who was in Julia.
Yeah.
Diane's series.
Yeah.
And I watched that show with my mom.
Yeah.
And so flash forward about 10, 15 years ago, and my ex-wife was on Broadway in Passing Strange. I was at one of the performances. I guess she was an understudy, but she wasn't performing that particular one, but she was there, and she got me a ticket, and I was there. And she during the intermission, she comes up to me and she says, "Guess who I saw in the lobby?" Because she knew my love for Diahann Carroll, and she said she was in the icon. And then it turns out not only that, wait for it, but that the empty seat behind me
was Diahann.
She sat in the seat behind me. And it was during the intermission, because she got there. I guess maybe she just didn't get there in time to be seated at the beginning. So and she had a place sit in they had maybe another room. But she came and I turned around. And I said, "I have to tell you that my mom and I used to watch your show, and I not so much, and I've loved you for so many years." And she goes, "Oh, you watched Dynasty?"
Exactly.
So we're chatting, and then I turn around to respect her. She's there with somebody, and she taps me on the shoulder. Can you just tell me about her grandchildren? And I couldn't believe it. And then afterwards, the cast of the show would go across the street to this bistro.
Yeah. And
they would have, like casts of shows do.
Yeah.
And we get there, and Diahann Carroll sitting in there eating with her friend, and I couldn't believe it. And so I got to really meet her. And then the other thing, I was working, and I promise I'll stop talking. But back in the early 90s, I was working for this music series based in Prospect Park. It wasn't at the band shell, but it was a small weekend series that took place just a number of Sundays, for like the season. And then, it's called Hot Prospect. Something, I can't remember the name, but it was, I worked there, on the Sundays. And one of the acts, and this show you how Abbey Lincoln, her work ethic, because she just worked she just would take jobs.
Yeah.
She was, as your documentary shows, she was being set up to be a real ingenue type, to be like the Hollywood singer, sexy and voluptuous. But she rejected that. Well, I saw her. She had released an album called "You Got to Pay the Band."
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite. It's a spectacular album, and I didn't know who she was. I think I was still in my 20s, and she came and she sang, and I was captivated. So and I'm telling you, if there were 20 people, 25 people there, maybe there were more. But it was a very small place. Maybe there were more, but so that was my introduction to her, that I got to kind of help her get her whatever she needed and, you know, help set up the show with her. And I was just blown away by that. So I was so happy to see her included in your group, because a lot of people don't know Abbey Lincoln.
That's right.
That's a question. So a lot of people don't know Abbey Lincoln. I just trying to now move things to you, but
yeah. So, why did I include her? Is that
and you can expand on who your choices were, because there are people that weren't included, for instance. Of course, you have a choice.
So the inspiration for the film is a book called How It Feels to Be Free, African-American Female Entertainers in the Civil Rights Movement by Dr. Ruth Feldstein, who's a professor at Rutgers. And the book came out in sometime in like 2014, end of 2014. And I read a review of the book. And as soon as I read the review, I hadn't even read the book, but as soon as I read the review, I thought that this could be a documentary film. And the reason why is because the women that I had never seen a take of the industry, of the Hollywood, of the entertainment industry, from these different perspectives, and these women in these different time periods and fields, and how they built off of each other, right, in terms of breaking through at these particular moments. I also thought, the book itself did not interview the women. I didn't have any interviews. It was very sort of academic and an analysis of their work, which was really, I thought, a great lens. And then additionally, to be able to add the interviews with, whoever was still with us, archive of them talking and narrating and telling their own stories. And of course, the archive of them performing. So I felt it had all of these different elements that could make a film. In the book, could make a really powerful documentary film. In the book, one of the women that's profiled is the South African entertainer Miriam Makeba, who's amazing. I ended up switching her out because I wanted to bring the film to a contemporary space, because I thought that also these women's careers were really the sort of foundation of what we're looking now at in terms of Black female storytelling and the renaissance that we're seeing of Black women behind the camera. And I thought Pam Grier could bring us there, and could be that bridge. So that's what. And her story is fascinating and had never really been told. So
and I feel like it was you almost. I think you challenged yourself by bringing her into that conversation, because these women are having a conversation, whether they know it or not, in your film. So but then we could also talk about Blaxploitation too, and Blaxploitation, when the film ends up looking at how African Americans have been portrayed and opportunities that they've had in Hollywood, and Blaxploitation is certainly a part of that. So we end up in the film having a really dynamic conversation about Blaxploitation and what that meant in terms of looking at the progress of African Americans being represented in the pop culture or in the popular culture. I like the breadth of choice of because even within the African American women, there's such a variety, and they're all dealing with such different issues. They share some, but they also have different that they have to deal with, whether it's the level of their beauty, outward beauty, or conventional beauty, let's say, versus the tone of their skin, how dark or light they are.
That's right.
Versus their politics, how radicalized or they are. So there's a really nice, like I said before, almost like a dialogue that's going on among them over that. And like Cicely's reaction, Cicely Tyson, one of your subjects, her reaction to Pam Grier and the popular rise of, fantastic. It was a fantastic opportunity to I don't think you could have made this film 10, 20 years ago, in fact, because there would have been you'd have to be feel more defensive about it. Like, you don't want to see women arguing.
Right,
No.
right. And we definitely tried not to, to make it so that they're arguing with each other.
You know what I'm saying?
But that they're, these are one of the things that was interesting to me in making the film that I didn't know when I started. Documentary, you're always discovering as you make it. But the tension that were in these tensions that all of these women had around career choices. So Lena Horne, one of the most fascinating examples I think is Lena Horne signs this groundbreaking contract where she refuses to play maids or people in the jungle, as her daughter said, and she gets backlash from, she's celebrated and heralded, but she also gets backlash from the Black actors who were working in Hollywood at the time, who were taking those roles, who were, saying, it's better for me to play a maid than to be a maid. And they were worried that if she, this young upstart who refuses to take those roles, then there wouldn't be any more of those roles. So, that's a super fascinating sort of tension. And we talked about Blaxploitation, where there's that tension. Diahann Carroll, she gets backlash for Julia.
Right.
Because she's not.
She's breaking the door. I mean, she's, opening the door or breaking maybe one of many levels of ceilings. but I mean, and still heavily criticized. I guess it's just comes with the territory, but heavily criticized for, whitewashing and
and for not dealing with race in the series.
Well, the thing with the Cosby Show was years later.
That's another example. Yeah,
complained about that. Well, this isn't what good the Jeffersons was. I remember that. Also, that show was, they were criticized because, and then Good Times is criticized because they're, also just there's no way to win. You're never.
Well, the issue is we have so few opportunities that when they do come around, there's going to be critique from many sides because there's so much that people want from those, from those shows.
Yes, you're right. If there were 20, 30 shows on,
then
African Americans in all of their various, economies and
classes and
yes, you're right. Yeah, and and like the Julia, supposedly supposed to open the door, but the door closes, and then there's no show starting in America for a decade.
And all the women face that too. They have this opportunity, and then it gets shut in their face.
Well, I'm glad that again. I was very glad to see Abbey Lincoln in there because I didn't know nearly enough. I knew she was married to Max Roach,
right?
I did not know the I guess, jazz singer. Who's sort of what's the word, molded or to be a pop singer, right?
Right, to be like a Lena Horne. Yeah. I mean, her story is fascinating, and it is one of the surprises for most people,
right?
About who she was and how she was even before Nina Simone in terms of bringing those politics to her lyrics and the backlash that she got because of it.
I was actually speaking earlier today, coincidentally, to a friend of yours, Nancy Bursky.
Yes. Whose
new documentary is also coming out. But I was reminded that she did her Sidney Lumet documentary years ago, and that Sidney Lumet Lena Horne was actually his mother-in-law.
Yes, that's right.
So, speaking of which, I know that this is Lena's daughter, but did women also have to deal with that? I mean, it seems almost inevitably that being in an interracial relationship in the 60s, that had to be also.
Yes, for sure. And, the film is not a biography of these women, right? So we do not tell, obviously, we can't, it's 6 stories, but that means there was a lot we had to leave out. And actually, in some of the initial first cuts, we did try to include Lena's marriage to Lenny Hayden, who was her musical director. And they were married in the late 50s, early 60s, and definitely experienced racism. And they actually had to go to, I think their marriage, I think it was secret for a while. They didn't come out with it, and they went to Paris, and either right after they married or got married there. I'm forgetting, and were there for like a year or two, a year or two, I think a year, and had, like so many African Americans and African American interracial couples, had a totally different experience, not experiencing the racism, outward racism that they experience in the States.
New York, The Tonight Show, starring Johnny Carson. And now, here's fabulous Harry Belafonte. Here he comes.
Wait a minute. Harry Belafonte hosted a week of The Tonight Show? What? How did I not know this?
Harry Belafonte takes an existing white institution and he turns it into something that represents his world.
There are many sides to Harry Belafonte. Singer, actor, activist.
Harry had an agenda, and he had the people to back it up.
What do you have in store for us this summer?
I feel that we are in the midst of a most critical period in our nation.
You see how pivotal this week was.
That was the most revolutionary move that mainstream television could have done at the time.
Good night. Thank you for being with
us. Let's pivot to the Harry Belafonte documentary. This is also something that I don't think many people don't know, and it seems on the surface not such a big deal now.
Yeah.
Johnny Carson, was this his first time he decided to let a guest host?
No, he'd had guest hosts before.
For a week?
For a week. It was his first time for a week.
Okay. Because and he turned over the
guest list that he had
to Harry Belafonte too.
That's right. Yeah.
For a week. And he obviously didn't give him any parameters or restrictions.
Exactly. And that was the condition by which Harry accepted the gig.
Right.
He'd been burned by television before. He didn't want to have.
Explain the burn that he got, because he stepped away from an enormous opportunity.
Yeah, so he had been, or maybe we haven't talked about it. It might have been another interview that I did yesterday, talking about how Harry was a really huge star. Like he was, he had that album came out with Deo, and it broke records. And so it's established him as a singer. And then he started doing a lot of TV work as guests on shows, and having his own special. And he had a special a couple years before I think it was maybe it was in the mid 60s or early 60s, I'm forgetting, a TV special where he had, and we show clips from the special, and he had, again, it was Harry's world. It had dancers of different races, Black, white, Asian. It was an integrated special.
Right.
That was again, Harry's world. And he was bringing that world to this country of what it could, what that could be. Within his own family, he was living that life with the entertainers that he hung out with, and in his political realm. So anywho, the network said, invited him to do another special, to do more of these. But they said, it can't be an integrated cast. It has to be white cast or Black cast. And he decided not to do it.
Yeah, it's quite an opportunity for, I guess, more maybe he thought for the network. you know, because then they could say that they're diverse, right? I mean, the network.
Okay, I don't think they cared about that then. That's something they didn't care about then.
I mean, the networks, the NAACP were pressuring the networks at various times.
Yeah, all the time. I mean, that's another thing that was interesting to me, actually, with How It Feels to Be Free, that the NAACP, since, you know, Gone with the Wind, had been pressuring Hollywood to, you know,
diversify.
Yeah, or to at least scale back its racism in the beginning, right? In the beginning of the industry, which, you know, Birth of a Nation is considered sort of the beginning of Hollywood. And, you know, with Gone with the Wind, all through the 60s, that's how that's one of the ways Julia got on the air. And then in the 70s and 80s too. I mean, I even remember that. I remember when, you know, the NAACP or Jesse Jackson, I remember leading protests outside the Oscars. People kind of laughed at it then. They didn't think it was, you know, it was kind of dismissed. I remember that very well. And then, you know, only now with, you know, the Oscar So White campaign and all of that, are we taking, you know, is the industry taking that seriously?
Just to give an idea of Harry, who he invited that week, and you're going to help me fill it out. But you had Petula Clark, Martin Luther King. These are clearly juxtaposing themselves. Paul Newman, Buffy St. Marie, right? She was
Buffy.
I know she's interviewed. Dionne Warwick, Sidney Poitier, Bobby Kennedy, Aretha, and Cosby.
Diahann Carroll.
Diahann Carroll, our friend. Just incredible. So, and then it got very, very political. I mean, he didn't hold back at all. He said, and then the audience, Johnny Carson's audience, probably, well, I know for a fact because I saw your documentary, but a lot of them didn't respond very positively to that. That was their time to kind of pretend that, you know, all the noise going on outside their door was there. So they didn't want it when they were in bed at the end of the day, trying to kind of.
That's right. He challenged them, but at the same time, he also got really good reviews and good ratings too.
And ratings, of course, they sold soap.
Yeah.
And Johnny Carson was obviously pleased, or not. He had him back on.
Very pleased. Yes, Johnny was very pleased.
Well, what about Johnny Carson? So it's like, where is he coming? Were you able to uncover anything? Like, because
it's a great question, because people are always like very surprised, right? That Johnny did this and had him on. I mean, what we know, I mean, obviously, you know, we can't get into his head, but that he felt that he needed to deal with some of the stuff that was going on. I mean, we have one of my favorite scenes is when he comes on Little Miss 1960, I think it's 1960, Little Miss 1968. And he's saying, you know, we have war, we have famine, we have racial strife. You know, him and Ed McMahon do this bit. So he obviously was fully aware of what was going on and wanted to find a way to talk about it and to deal with it. And he knew that he was not the right person to do that. And so he felt that Harry, and I think because of Harry's intense popularity and the fact that he was the conduit between Hollywood and the movement, that he was the one to do it.
Right, absolutely.
And he could do it and be entertaining, and not just be didactic.
Absolutely, and also Carson knew that it would reflect positively on him for making that, you know, handing him the keys for that week, you know. And he left Ed McMahon, right?
What did you say?
He left Ed McMahon to continue though the week.
Yeah, Ed McMahon was still on the show. Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder how he was dealing with that, but I don't know if he was. But you never know. I also enjoyed the round. He did sort of a Right. He did. Carson did do a special, right?
Yes.
Where he did do like kind of not a round table, but essentially where he discussed.
Yep. After Kennedy. After Kennedy
was assassinated.
was shot. Yeah. Assassinated.
Well.
Yeah.
These are both, you have such great archive, and I mean, that must be the time consumption right there, right?
Well, you have to have a team, obviously, and a great archival producer, which we had.
Who's that?
So for How It Feels to Be Free, our co-production was in Canada. So we used a archival producer out of Canada who was amazing. And for Harry Belafonte, we worked with Rich Rensburg, who's very well known in the industry.
Yeah, they're worth noting because they're such great archive, and we see so much content, and we have YouTube now, but there's stuff people will really enjoy, and it's contextual. I think it's really the power behind that. In both cases, both films, it's very effective. So we'll remind people again, and maybe I won't botch it up. So How It Feels to Be Free is on Amazon.
Yes.
And then the sit-in, Harry Belafonte hosts The Tonight Show, is on Peacock.
That's correct.
And both are currently available. And I really do recommend everybody see it. Juneteenth is coming up, it so happens. You can watch it this weekend if you want to do that.
Absolutely.
But, they don't work as they're not so didactic. I mean, they are, but they're entertaining films.
Well, you got to be entertaining, like no matter what,
right.
Got to make people want to see it.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe that's something you guys are going to talk about. Maybe a little bit at your this series is part of this Beyond Resistance series that Firelight Media. Firelight is a production company. And up in New York City, and they've been doing this series on, I guess, is it just Facebook, or do they also stream it elsewhere?
I guess it's just Facebook Live.
Yeah, okay. Again, yourself, Malika Zawali Waral, and Najia too. I don't know her films. I don't know her.
I don't know the last person either, but I'm excited to hear about it.
Yeah, me too. I'm gonna tune in or stream in. All right, well, I just had to get that out of my system. I'll let you go about your day now. And
thank you so much for having me.
Let's do it again. I'm serious. Like anytime you have a project,
Absolutely.
We did something from the Metro. Remember that? We were met at the Metro. And then I get on the subway. Yeah. Remember that day? And then I got on the subway and I'm riding up, and I think I'm walking under Times Square or something. And I see this woman walking in front of me. I'm like, that cannot be Yoruba. Do you remember that? It was like an hour later, and I ran.
Wow. Well, that makes sense.
Anyway, all right.
Okay. Thank you.
I'll see you soon, and I'll give you the heads up.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you.